The equation covered the entire whiteboard, symbols and numbers that looked more like modern art than mathematics. Dr. Catherine Morrison stood beside it, her back straight, her gray hair pulled into a severe bun. She wore pearls, real ones, and a blazer that probably cost more than most of her students' monthly rent. Her hand held the marker like a weapon. In the third row, slouched so low he was practically horizontal, sat Elijah Wright, 12 years old, black, wearing a hoodie with a stain on the sleeve and shoes held together with duct tape. His notebook was blank, his pencil untouched. Around him, 200 students watched in silence as Dr. Morrison pointed directly at him. "You," she said, her voice carrying across the lecture hall. "The boy sleeping in the third row. Stand up." Elijah didn't move. Dr. Morrison's lips thinned. I said stand up. Or do you not understand English?" Slowly, Elijah stood. His hoodie was too big, his jeans too long. He looked exactly like what everyone assumed he was, a diversity scholarship student who didn't belong. "What's your name?" Dr. Morrison demanded. "Elijah Wright, ma'am." His voice was quiet, respectful, the voice of a kid who'd learned early that the world was waiting for him to mess up. Dr. Morrison smiled. It wasn't kind. "Well, Elijah Wright, let's see if Westbrook Academy's diversity initiative was worth the investment. Solve this." She tapped the equation. "If a black boy from the South Side can solve what took me 30 years, I'll resign and give him my tenure position." The room erupted. Whispers, gasps, phones coming out. Someone started live streaming, but Elijah just looked at the board and smiled. See, 6 months earlier, Elijah Wright sat in Cook County Hospital holding his little sister's hand. Sarah was 8, bald from chemotherapy, so thin her bones showed through her skin. The hospital gown was too big on her. It hung like a tent, making her look even smaller, even more fragile. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Stage 4. The doctors gave her 6 months without treatment, maybe 2 years with it. Treatment cost $400,000. Their mother worked 3 jobs, morning shift at a nursing home, afternoon at a grocery store, nights cleaning offices downtown. She slept 4 hours a day. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Even with insurance, the co-pays alone were drowning them. The GoFundMe had raised $12,000, nowhere near what they needed. Sarah's room was on the pediatric oncology floor. The walls were painted with cheerful murals, animals and rainbows and happy trees, as if bright colors could make children forget they were dying. Other kids shuffled past in the hallway, some in wheelchairs, some pushing IV poles, all of them too young to understand why their bodies were betraying them. "EJ?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. She called him EJ, always had, ever since she was 2 and couldn't pronounce Elijah. "Yeah, Bug?" Elijah squeezed her hand gently. Her fingers were so thin, like bird bones. He was terrified of holding too tight, of breaking something. "Tell me a story about Dad." Elijah's throat tightened. Their father had died when Elijah was 2. Sarah never knew him. All she had were Elijah's stories, pieced together from their mother's memories and a box of photographs hidden in their apartment closet. Stories that grew more elaborate each time Sarah asked. Stories that kept James Wright alive in the only way left to them. "Dad was brilliant," Elijah said quietly. "Smartest man in any room. Could solve equations in his head that took other people hours with computers." "Like you," Sarah said. "Yeah," Elijah agreed. "Like me." What he didn't tell her, their father, James Wright, had been a mathematics prodigy. PhD from MIT at 22. Groundbreaking work in number theory, a future that should have changed the world, until he died in 1988. Suicide, the official report said, jumped from the roof of Westbrook Academy's mathematics building. No note, no explanation. Just a brilliant black man destroyed by pressure nobody talked about. But Elijah's mother knew different. She'd told him the truth on his 10th birthday. 2 weeks after Sarah's diagnosis. "Your father didn't kill himself," she'd said, her voice hard. "He was murdered by the man who stole his work and built an empire on it." Dr. Marcus Westbrook, Dean of Mathematics at Westbrook Academy, author of 14 books, holder of 3 major mathematics prizes, a giant in the field, all of it built on stolen research, all of it taken from James Wright and 11 other black graduate students who'd mysteriously left the program between 1985 and 1988. Some transferred, some dropped out. One died in a car accident. None of them ever published their research. But Marcus Westbrook did. Elijah's mother had spent 24 years collecting evidence, letters, emails, handwritten notes in James's careful script. The proof that every major theorem attributed to Marcus Westbrook had actually been developed by his graduate students. Students he'd exploited, discredited, and destroyed. But proof wasn't enough. They needed confession. They needed Westbrook to destroy himself publicly, undeniably, in a way that couldn't be covered up or explained away. That's when Elijah's video went viral. He'd been messing around on TikTok, solving math problems people posted in the comments. Funny stuff, mostly. How many M&Ms in this jar? What's 15% tip on $47.83? Then someone posted a variant of a Millennium Prize problem, the kind of equation that professional mathematicians spent careers trying to solve. Elijah had solved it in 8 minutes, posted the solution as a joke. Within 24 hours, he had 15 million views, news outlets calling, universities offering scholarships, and Dr. Catherine Morrison, professor of advanced mathematics at Westbrook Academy, personally inviting him to attend on full scholarship. "Your son is extraordinary," Dr. Morrison had told Elijah's mother. "We have resources that could nurture his gift, shape his future." Elijah's mother had accepted immediately, because she recognized Catherine Morrison's name. Catherine had been one of James Wright's students, one of the 12 whose research had been stolen. The only one who'd survived, stayed in academia, and built a career despite everything. The only one who might be an ally, or another enemy. They wouldn't know until they tried. So Elijah went to Westbrook Academy. 12 years old in a school designed for high school students. The youngest person in every class. Definitely the poorest. Absolutely the blackest. The other students looked at him like he was a visitor from another planet. Most of them had trust funds older than he was. They talked about summer homes in the Hamptons and ski trips to Aspen. Elijah talked about which bus routes got you home safest after dark. He deliberately hid his abilities, sat in the back, kept his mouth shut, got B's and C's on tests he could have aced blindfolded, because drawing attention was dangerous, because his mother had taught him, be invisible until it's time to be seen, because Sarah was getting worse and he needed to focus on the mission, not on proving he belonged somewhere he'd never truly be welcome. Dr. Morrison noticed. Of course she did. She'd been watching him since day one. In class, she'd ask questions Elijah knew the answers to, and he'd shrug, play dumb. I'd pretend he didn't understand. She never called him out, just watched him with eyes that were too knowing, too calculating, like she was waiting for something. Then came the lecture. November 15th. Advanced Number Theory Symposium. Open to all students. Live streamed to 50,000 viewers worldwide. Dr. Morrison's annual showcase, where she presented her latest research to students and colleagues. This year's topic, impossibility proofs in modern mathematics. Elijah had planned to skip it, but his mother had called that morning. Sarah's worse, she'd said, her voice breaking. The doctors say we need to start aggressive treatment now, or... She couldn't finish. Elijah had gone to class in a daze, sat in the third row because it was the first empty seat he found. Barely registered Dr. Morrison walking to the front, and barely heard her introduction. He was thinking about Sarah, about hospital bills they couldn't pay, about his father who died trying to get justice and failed, about whether any of this was worth it. Then Dr. Morrison wrote the equation, and everything changed. The equation was beautiful. That was Elijah's first thought. Complex, yes. Difficult, absolutely. But beautiful in the way that mathematical truth is always beautiful. It was a variant of Fermat's last theorem, modified with elements of the Riemann hypothesis and some topology Elijah recognized from his father's old notebooks. Dr. Morrison had published a paper about it last month. Proof of impossibility. Why certain mathematical truths cannot coexist. The paper had made waves, been cited in major journals, established Morrison as a leading voice in impossibility theory. The paper was also completely, intentionally wrong. Elijah could see it immediately. The error was in the third line, hidden in a substitution that looked valid but created a logical loop. Anyone checking the work would catch it eventually. But Dr. Morrison had presented it so confidently, with so much authority, that most people just accepted it. That's how academic fraud worked. Confidence and credentials mattered more than correctness. Elijah had spent the last month wondering why Morrison would publish something so obviously flawed. Now, standing in front of 200 students and 50,000 live stream viewers, he understood. She wasn't wrong. She was bait. The question was, for who? Dr. Morrison's voice cut through his thoughts. Well, Mr. Wright, are you going to solve it? Or admit you don't belong here? The room was silent. Every eye on Elijah, every phone pointed at him. This was the moment his mother had prepared him for, the moment everything changed, except it was supposed to happen differently, privately, carefully, not in front of witnesses, not live-streamed to the world. Elijah looked at Dr. Morrison, really looked, and saw something in her eyes. Not cruelty, not mockery, permission. May I approach the board, ma'am? His voice was still quiet, but steady. By all means. She stepped aside, handed him the marker. Her hand brushed his. For a split second, he felt paper, a note pressed into his palm. He pocketed it smoothly, walked to the board. The equation stared back at him. Behind him, 200 students watched. 50,000 people online watched. Dr. Morrison watched. Elijah picked up the marker and began to write. Mathematics is a language. That's what Elijah's father had written in his notebooks. A language that transcends culture and color and class. When you write mathematics, you speak truth. Universal, undeniable, unchangeable. Elijah wrote truth. He started with Dr. Morrison's equation, rewrote it, expanding the compressed notation, showed where the substitution created the logical loop, how the proof of impossibility was actually proof of possibility if you corrected the deliberate error. His hand moved steadily, numbers flowing like water, each stroke of the marker deliberate, confident. The room behind him was dead silent. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. A girl in the second row had her phone up, hands shaking. The live stream viewer count was climbing, 52,000, 55,000, 60,000, people sharing in real time. Holy shit, someone whispered. The words carried in the silence. Someone else. Is he actually? Shut up. Let him work. A boy in the back was crying. Elijah could hear it. Quiet, shocked tears. Someone understanding what they were witnessing. The fall of an empire. The resurrection of a ghost. Elijah worked. The equation expanded, transformed. What had taken Dr. Morrison 30 years, or so she claimed, was unraveling under Elijah's marker like a magic trick revealed, not because it was impossible, but because it had been deliberately misconstrued, deliberately broken, a puzzle with pieces hidden, waiting for the right person to find them. 3 minutes in, Elijah heard footsteps, heavy, authoritative, the kind of footsteps that announced importance, that demanded attention. A man's voice, loud and sharp. What is the meaning of this, Dr. Marcus Westbrook? A dean of mathematics, holder of 17 honorary degrees, author of books Elijah had read and found full of his father's voice, his father's ideas, his father's brilliance, stolen and repackaged. Elijah's father's murderer. Elijah didn't turn around, kept writing. His heart was hammering, 120 beats per minute, then 130, but his hand stayed steady. 5 minutes. The solution was taking shape. Beautiful, elegant, undeniable, like watching a photograph develop in a darkroom. The truth emerging from chemical reactions, inevitable and perfect. "Catherine," Westbrook said, his voice tight, "stop this, now." "Stop what?" Dr. Morrison's voice was innocent. "The boy is solving a problem. Isn't that what we teach here? This is humiliating, for him and for you. He can't possibly, can't he?" 6 minutes. Elijah was in the final stages now, and the proof emerging like sunrise. Behind him, he could hear Westbrook moving closer, could feel the man's rage like heat. "Catherine, if you don't stop this charade..." "Then what, Marcus?" Dr. Morrison's voice had changed, sharper, colder. "You'll fire me? Destroy my career? The way you destroyed James Wright's?" The room exploded, students gasping, phones raised higher, the live stream comments going insane. Elijah's hand never stopped moving. 7 minutes. He was writing the final steps. The solution that proved Dr. Morrison's published proof was wrong. That showed the equation not only was solvable, it had been solved before, 35 years ago, by James Wright. "You don't know what you're talking about," Westbrook said, but his voice was uncertain now, scared. "Don't I?" Dr. Morrison's voice carried across the silent room. "James Wright, brilliant mathematician, your student, found dead in 1988. Suicide, they said, but we both know different. Catherine," Westbrook's voice was a warning, "shut up. Or what? You'll kill me too? Like you killed James? Like you tried to kill the others?" 8 minutes. Elijah wrote the final line. QED, quad erat demonstrandum, which was to be demonstrated. The proof was complete, the equation solved. He stepped back. The board was covered in his handwriting, neat, precise, perfect. He turned to face the room, 200 students staring at him with mouths open, 50,000 viewers online, Dr. Catherine Morrison with tears streaming down her face, and Dr. Marcus Westbrook frozen in the center aisle, his face the color of old snow. "Check it," Elijah said quietly. His voice shouldn't have carried. But the room was so silent that everyone heard. "Check every step. It's correct. The equation Dr. Morrison published as impossible isn't. She knew it wasn't, because my father solved it in 1987. He pulled the note Dr. Morrison had given him from his pocket, unfolded it, read aloud. James Wright, Ph.D. candidate, 1986 to 1988. Completed groundbreaking work on unified field theory and number theory. Work was stolen by his advisor, Dr. Marcus Westbrook. When James threatened to report the theft, he was murdered, made to look like suicide. Along with his research, 11 other black graduate students' dissertations were stolen between 1985 and 1988. The room was chaos now, everyone shouting. Dr. Morrison's voice cut through. "I was one of those students. Marcus took 3 years of my work, published it under his name. When I confronted him, he threatened to destroy me, blacklist me from every university. So I stayed quiet, spent 30 years building a career in his shadow, watching him win prizes for work we did, work he stole." She turned to Westbrook. "But I never forgot, and I never forgave." Westbrook was backing away, hands up. "This is insane! Catherine, you're having a breakdown! The stress of living a lie for 30 years? Catherine laughed. It was bitter, broken. "The stress of watching you profit from murder? I didn't kill anyone." "Didn't you?" Catherine pulled out her phone, pressed play. A recording filled the room, old, scratchy, but audible. "Can't let him publish. He'll ruin everything. So what do you suggest? We just make it look like suicide." The pressure got to him. Young black man couldn't handle the expectations. The story writes itself. Jesus, Marcus, that's survival, him or us. The recording stopped. The room was dead silent. Someone was crying. Someone else was on the phone, probably calling the police. Westbrook's face had gone from white to gray. Where did you get that? From James Wright's office, Catherine said. He recorded every meeting with you. Knew something was wrong. The day before he died, he gave me a box, told me to keep it safe, said if anything happened to him, to make sure the truth came out. She looked at Elijah. He also told me he had a son, 2 years old, named Elijah. And he made me promise that if I ever had the chance, I'd help that boy become everything his father could have been. Elijah felt like he'd been punched. You knew? This whole time? You knew who I was? From the moment your TikTok went viral, Catherine confirmed. I recognized your face. You look exactly like your father. Same eyes, same smile, same gift. She turned to the room, to the cameras, to the 50,000 people watching online. I invited Elijah here with one purpose, to expose Marcus Westbrook, to show the world that the equation I published, the one Marcus helped me develop, was actually James Wright's work, that I'd been sitting on it for 35 years, waiting for the right moment. I published it wrong on purpose, made it look impossible, knew that Marcus would claim credit, would defend the impossibility because that's what his career is built on, taking brilliant work and making it his own. And I knew that Elijah, James's son, could solve it. I could prove in front of witnesses that not only is it possible, his father had already done it. She looked at Westbrook. You spent 35 years profiting from murder. Today, in front of 200 witnesses and 50,000 people online, you're finally caught. FBI agents were entering the lecture hall. They'd been waiting outside. Catherine had arranged everything. The live stream, the public confrontation, the recorded confession. Westbrook's lawyers wouldn't be able to suppress this. Too many witnesses, too much evidence, too public. Westbrook was screaming now about entrapment, about illegal recordings, about how they'd never prove anything. But his voice was drowned out by the chaos, students crying, calling parents, some recording everything. The live stream chat was exploding, news outlets already picking up the story. But Black Math Prodigy exposes decades of academic fraud. Professor murdered for his research, son solves father's equation 35 years later. The Westbrook scandal, how one dean built an empire on stolen work and murder. Elijah stood at the board, marker still in his hand, staring at the equation he'd just solved. His father's equation, the work that had cost James Wright his life. EJ? He turned. His mother was there. He didn't know when she'd arrived, didn't know how she'd known to come. She was crying, holding a photograph. Elijah took it. The photo showed a young black man, maybe 25, standing in front of a chalkboard covered in equations. He was smiling. He looked exactly like Elijah. Your father, his mother said, her voice breaking. The day he finished this proof, he called me, said, I just solved something that's going to change the world. 2 days later, he was dead. She pulled Elijah into a hug, held him like she'd never let go. He'd be so proud of you. So proud. Elijah couldn't speak, just held his mother and cried, for the father he'd never known, for the 35 years of lies, for Sarah dying in a hospital room, for all of it. Catherine approached. Mrs. Wright, Elijah, I'm so sorry for everything, for not coming forward sooner, for letting Marcus. You did what you had to survive, Elijah's mother interrupted. We all did. The question is what happens now. Catherine smiled. It was small, sad, but real. Now we rebuild. The university is launching a full investigation. They've already found evidence of 12 stolen dissertations, maybe more. And we're establishing a fund, the James Wright Memorial Scholarship, for black students in STEM, full ride, no strings. She turned to Elijah. And I meant what I said. I'm resigning, giving you my tenure position. I'm 12, Elijah said. Catherine laughed. Then I'll hold it for you, however long it takes. This is your legacy, Elijah, your father's legacy. It's time the world knew the truth. The investigation took 6 months. FBI, Department of Justice, academic review boards, they found everything. 12 dissertations stolen between 1985 and 1988. All from black graduate students, all published under Marcus Westbrook's name. The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded conversations, handwritten notes in Westbrook's handwriting detailing how to adapt his students' work. Financial records showing payments to Marcus Reeves, the fixer who'd made James Wright's suicide look convincing. Emails discussing how to discredit students who ask questions. A systematic, decades-long pattern of theft, fraud, and at least one murder. Probably more. 2 of the 12 students had died in accidents in the years after leaving the program. The FBI was investigating. Westbrook's lawyers tried everything, claimed Catherine had fabricated the evidence, that the recordings were fake, that this was all a conspiracy by disgruntled former students. But the evidence was too strong, the witnesses too numerous, the public outcry too loud. The trial lasted 3 months. Elijah testified, explained the mathematics, showed how his father's proof was identical to Westbrook's published work, and demonstrated that the work couldn't have been done by 2 people independently. There were too many identical elements, too many unique approaches that only James Wright had used. Catherine testified about the theft of her own dissertation, about watching Marcus publish her work, about the fear that kept her silent for 30 years, about the box James had given her the day before he died, the box full of recordings, notes, proof. 11 other former students testified, told stories of stolen work, destroyed careers, lives derailed. One man broke down on the stand. I spent 20 years thinking I wasn't good enough, he said, thinking I'd failed. Now I find out I was brilliant. I just had the wrong advisor. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts, fraud, theft of intellectual property, the conspiracy to commit murder in the death of James Wright. The judge was black, a woman in her 60s who'd spent her career fighting discrimination. Her voice was ice when she delivered the sentence. Dr. Westbrook, you represent everything wrong with academia. You exploited your position of power to prey on vulnerable students. You stole their work, destroyed their futures, and when one had the courage to stand up to you, you had him killed. She paused. You didn't just rob James Wright of his life. You robbed the world of his brilliance, of the discoveries he would have made, of the students he would have taught, of the legacy he should have left. I'm sentencing you to life in prison without possibility of parole. How may you spend every day of your remaining life contemplating the lives you destroyed and the evil you perpetrated. Westbrook was led away in handcuffs. Didn't look at anyone, didn't speak, just shuffled out like a ghost. Outside the courthouse, news cameras waited, reporters shouting questions. Elijah stood with his mother and Catherine. Behind them, the 11 other students, now in their 50s and 60s, stood together, a united front. How does it feel to get justice? A reporter shouted. Elijah's mother answered, Justice would be my husband alive. Justice would be 35 years we didn't lose. This isn't justice, it's accountability. There's a difference. What's next for Elijah? Another reporter asked. Catherine answered, Elijah will continue his education. He'll have every resource Westbrook Academy can provide. And when he's ready, when he chooses, he'll take the position that should have been his father's. What about the other students, the ones whose work was stolen? We're working with the university to properly attribute all the stolen research, Catherine said. Every theorem, every publication, every prize that Westbrook won will be corrected to show the real authors. Their names will be restored, their work recognized. And the James Wright Memorial Scholarship? Fully funded, Catherine confirmed. $50 million, enough to provide full scholarships for black STEM students for the next 100 years. We're starting with 12 scholars this year, one for each student whose work was stolen. A reporter pushed forward. Elijah, how does it feel to solve your father's equation? To expose Westbrook? Elijah looked at the camera, at the millions of people watching. My father was brilliant, he said quietly. He could have changed the world, but the world killed him for being black and smart and refusing to stay in his place. He paused. This isn't about me being smart. It's about a system that punished my father for his genius, that rewards mediocre white men while destroying exceptional black ones, that forces us to be twice as good for half the recognition. My father solved that equation in 1987. I just proved he'd solved it. The tragedy isn't that it took 35 years to expose the truth. The tragedy is that we needed to expose it at all, that nobody believed my father the first time, that he had to die for anyone to listen. He looked directly at the camera. How many other James Wrights are out there? Yeah, how many brilliant minds are we losing because the system is designed to exclude them, to steal from them, to kill them? That's what this is about. Not me, not Westbrook, the system that created him, the system that protected him for 35 years. The system that's still operating today. The reporter had no response. Nobody did. Sarah Wright died on a Tuesday, 3 months after the trial. The experimental treatment hadn't worked. The leukemia had spread too far, too fast. She was 8 years old. Elijah sat beside her bed holding her hand, his mother on the other side. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Did we win, EJ? Yeah, Bug. We won. Tell me about Dad. So Elijah told her. About James Wright, the brilliant mathematician. About the equations he'd solved. About the legacy he'd left. And about how the whole world finally knew his name. And you solved his equation, Sarah said. Her eyes were closed. She was smiling. Just like him. Just like him, Elijah agreed. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Bug. You fought so hard. I'm tired now. I know. Will you tell Dad about me? When you're famous and everyone's talking about our family? Will you tell them about Sarah? Elijah's voice broke. I'll tell everyone, I promise. Sarah squeezed his hand. Love you, EJ. Love you too, Bug. She died 3 minutes later, peaceful, pain-free, surrounded by love. The funeral was massive, hundreds of people. The 11 stolen students came, Catherine came, classmates from Westbrook Academy, reporters, strangers who'd followed the story, people who'd never met Sarah but felt like they knew her. Elijah gave the eulogy. My sister Sarah was 8 years old. She loved unicorns and math jokes and making fun of me when I got too serious. She died of leukemia because we couldn't afford treatment, because our father was murdered and our family was destroyed, and we spent 35 years fighting for scraps while the man who killed him lived in luxury. He looked out at the crowd. Sarah wanted me to be famous, to solve equations and win prizes and make our father proud. But I don't want that anymore. I don't want to be exceptional. I just want to be black and smart and alive without having to prove I deserve to exist. My father was murdered for being brilliant. Sarah died because we were poor. And the world wants to celebrate me for exposing the man who killed my dad. But I don't want celebration. I want change. I want a world where black kids don't have to be twice as good to get half as far. Where brilliant minds aren't stolen or silenced or destroyed. Where 8-year-old girls don't die because their families can't afford medical care. He pulled out a piece of paper. Sarah made me promise something before she died. She made me promise that I'd use my voice, that I wouldn't let them make me invisible. So here's what I'm doing. I'm not going back to Westbrook Academy. I'm starting a school, a free school for kids like me, kids from the South Side, kids who are brilliant but invisible, kids who deserve a chance. The James and Sarah Wright Academy for Mathematics, tuition-free, resource-rich, focused on lifting up the voices that get silenced, on celebrating the brilliance that gets stolen. Catherine Morrison is joining me. So are the 11 students whose work was stolen. We're building something new, something better, something my father would have been proud of. He folded the paper. Sarah wanted me to tell Dad's story, but it's not just his story. It's all of ours. Every black person who's been told they're not smart enough, not good enough, not enough. We are enough. We've always been enough, and it's time the world stopped making us prove it. The crowd stood, applauded, cried. Catherine approached after the service. You're sure about the school? I'm sure. You're giving up Westbrook, the resources, the prestige. Elijah looked at Sarah's casket. Sarah didn't need prestige. She needed medicine. There are thousands of kids like her, brilliant, dying, invisible. I'm not going to be exceptional in their name. I'm going to be useful. Catherine nodded. Your father would have said the same thing. Yeah, Elijah said. He would have. She handed him an envelope. James gave this to me. The day before he died. Told me to give it to his son when the time was right. Elijah's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a letter in his father's handwriting. Elijah, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Dead. Probably murdered, though they'll call it suicide, and you're old enough to understand what that means. I want you to know something. Being brilliant is not a gift. It's a responsibility. The world will try to take it from you, to steal your work, to silence your voice, to make you invisible. Don't let them. Use your mind to build, to create, to lift up others. Don't chase prizes or prestige. Chase justice. Chase change. Be useful, not exceptional. And know that I loved you. I love you. I will always love you. Even from death, I'm proud of you. Make them remember my name. But more importantly, make them change the system that killed me. Dad. Elijah read it 3 times, folded it carefully, put it in his pocket next to the photo of his father at the chalkboard. The time is right, he said to Catherine. Yeah, she agreed. It is. 5 years later, the James and Sarah Wright Academy for Mathematics had 500 students. Grades 6 to 12, tuition free. State-of-the-art facilities funded by the settlement from Westbrook Academy. $250 million in damages for the stolen work and fraud. Elijah was 17, still brilliant, still black, still fighting. The school had produced 3 Intel Science Fair winners. I sent 28 students to Ivy League schools on full scholarships, published 17 papers in peer-reviewed journals. But Elijah was most proud of the other statistics. 0 students lost to violence, 0 dropouts, 100% graduation rate, 73% first-generation college students, and a wait list of 10,000 kids desperate for a chance. Catherine taught calculus. The 11 stolen students taught various subjects. Guest lecturers came from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, eager to recruit the brilliant minds they'd ignored for decades. Elijah taught a class called Mathematics and Justice. It covered number theory and topology, but also history, the Tuskegee experiments, redlining, how statistics can be used to oppress or liberate, how brilliance is shaped by opportunity, not innate ability. On the anniversary of his father's death, Elijah stood in front of his class. 30 students, all black and brown, all brilliant, all hungry. My father died 37 years ago today, Elijah said. Murdered because he refused to let his work be stolen, because he stood up to power, because he was black and brilliant and visible. For 35 years, the world forgot him, erased him, gave credit to the man who killed him. But we remember. This school remembers. Every equation you solve, every theorem you prove, every voice you raise, that's remembering. He pulled out the photograph, his father at the chalkboard, smiling. This is James Wright, mathematician, father, revolutionary. He solved problems people said were impossible. He stood up when everyone told him to sit down. He paid for it with his life. But he won. Because we're here. Because 500 kids who the world tried to make invisible are being seen. Because the system that killed him is being dismantled 1 student at a time. A girl in the front row raised her hand. Mr. Wright? What do we do when we face our own Marcus Westbrooks? When people try to steal our work or silence our voices? Elijah smiled. You document everything. You find your allies. You build your evidence. And when the time is right, when you have the platform and the proof, you burn the whole thing down. But never alone, he continued. That's what killed my father. He tried to fight alone. We fight together. We protect each other. We lift each other up. That's what this school is. That's what this movement is. Not individual brilliance, collective resistance. The students nodded, scribbled notes, and asked questions. After class, a boy approached. Marcus, 15, quiet, brilliant. Mr. Wright, I solved something. I think it's new, but I'm scared to publish it. What if someone steals it? Elijah looked at the notebook Marcus held out, scanned the equations. His eyes widened. Marcus, this is groundbreaking. This could revolutionize cryptography. So someone will steal it. Not if we do this right. Come on. Elijah took Marcus to Catherine's office, showed her the work. Catherine's jaw dropped. Oh my God! We need to publish this immediately, with full attribution, multiple witnesses, copyright protection, the works. They spent the next week preparing, contacted journals, got legal advice, made sure Marcus's name was on everything, protected, undeniable. When the paper published, it made headlines. 15-year-old revolutionizes cryptography. Student at James Wright Academy makes major mathematical discovery. The next generation of black excellence in STEM. Marcus did interviews. Shy but proud, gave credit to his teachers, to the school, to the environment that let him thrive. I wouldn't have tried this anywhere else, he said in one interview. Other schools, they make you compete, make you hide your brilliance so others don't steal it. Here, we share. We build together. That's why I could take the risk. Elijah watched the interview from his office, smiled. His father's photo sat on the desk, his sister's picture beside it. We did it, he said quietly. We're changing it. His phone rang, unknown number. He answered. Mr. Wright, this is Dr. Amanda Chen from MIT. I'm calling about your application to our PhD program. Elijah had applied on a whim, wasn't sure he wanted to go, but Catherine had insisted. You can't just build the school. You need credentials, legacy, proof that the system can change. I'm pleased to inform you that you've been accepted, Dr. Chen continued. Full scholarship, research position, and... She paused. We'd like to name our new mathematics building after your father, the James Wright Center for Mathematical Excellence, if you'll allow it. Elijah couldn't speak. Mr. Wright? Yes, he managed. Yes, he'd like that. We'll be in touch about the details. Congratulations, Elijah. Your father would be proud. She hung up. Elijah sat in silence, looked at the photo, at James Wright smiling at his chalkboard, not knowing he had 3 days left to live. Yeah, Dad, Elijah said. I think he would be. The dedication ceremony for the James Wright Center for Mathematical Excellence happened on a cold October morning. Elijah stood on stage, 17 years old, wearing his father's watch, the only possession they'd returned after his death. The MIT campus was packed, students, faculty, press. The 11 stolen students now in their 60s. Catherine Morrison, retired but sharp as ever. Elijah's mother in the front row, crying. And behind them all, a banner with James Wright's photo. Young, smiling, brilliant. The MIT president spoke. James Wright was a student here from 1983 to 1986. He completed his PhD in 3 years. A remarkable achievement. His work on unified field theory and number theory was groundbreaking, revolutionary. It should have changed the field, but James never got to publish it. Never got credit. Never got to build the legacy he deserved, because his advisor, Marcus Westbrook, stole his work and had him killed. She paused. Let the words hang. For 37 years, this university failed James Wright. We allowed fraud to flourish. We ignored evidence. We protected a predator and abandoned his victims. Today, we begin to make amends." She turned to Elijah. "Elijah Wright has accomplished more in 17 years than most mathematicians do in a lifetime. But his greatest achievement isn't solving equations. It's forcing us to see the truth, to confront our complicity, to change. The James Wright Center represents our commitment to that change. Every black student who walks through these doors will know that their brilliance is valued, protected, celebrated, that we will never again allow another James Wright to be silenced." The crowd applauded. Elijah approached the podium, looked out at hundreds of faces, at his father's photo, at the building that would bear his name. "My father died for refusing to be invisible," Elijah said. "He demanded credit for his work, recognition for his brilliance, justice for himself and others. The system killed him for it. For 37 years, that system claimed victory. Westbrook won prizes, made millions, lived in luxury, while my father rotted in a grave and my family struggled to survive. But we won, not because Westbrook's in prison, not because MIT built a building. We won because 500 kids in Chicago are getting the education my father never could give me. Because 12 students are going to college on scholarships bearing my sister's name, because the next Marcus isn't going to get away with it. My father's equation, the one I solved on live TV, isn't just math. It's proof. Proof that brilliance doesn't have a color, that genius doesn't require wealth, that the only thing separating the James Wrights from the Marcus Westbrooks is opportunity and theft. This building represents opportunity, real opportunity, not diversity theater, not performative inclusion, actual investment in actual black brilliance. But a building isn't enough. We need systemic change. We need to audit every major mathematician's work for plagiarism. We need to investigate suspicious accidents and suicides of black students. We need to stop celebrating mediocre white men who steal from exceptional black minds. My father couldn't do that. He tried and died. But I can. We can. Every student at the James and Sarah Wright Academy is training to fight, to document, to expose, to burn down the systems that kill us. He looked at the banner, at his father's face. "Dad, they finally know your name. Not because of me, because of you. Because you were extraordinary, because you refused to be erased." And to everyone watching, if you're black and brilliant and tired of fighting for recognition, we see you. We're building space for you. Come join us. We're not asking for permission anymore. We're taking what's ours, and we're making sure no one can steal it again. The crowd erupted, standing ovation, tears, chants of "James Wright. James Wright." Catherine stood beside Elijah. "He'd be proud." "I know," Elijah said. "But he'd also tell us we're not done." "No," Catherine agreed. "We're not. But we're winning." "Yeah," Elijah said, watching his mother cry happy tears in the front row. "We are." 10 years later, Elijah Wright, Ph.D., stood in front of the UN General Assembly. He was 27. The youngest person to address the Assembly on educational policy. His work on mathematics as liberation, decolonizing STEM education had won international acclaim. The James and Sarah Wright Academy had expanded to 12 campuses across the U.S., graduated 6,000 students, sent 4,500 to college, published 300 research papers. The model was being replicated in 20 countries. But Elijah wasn't here to celebrate. He was here to challenge. "Members of the General Assembly," he began, "I stand before you as the son of a murdered mathematician, as the brother of a child who died because her family was poor, as proof that brilliance is everywhere but opportunity is not. My father, James Wright, was killed for being black and brilliant. His work was stolen, his life erased. For 37 years, the world forgot him. Today, his name is on a building at MIT. His theorems are in textbooks. His legacy is alive. But how many other James Wrights died forgotten? How many are dying right now? He pulled out a report. According to UNESCO, 64% of black students in STEM fields report experiencing discrimination. 47% report having their work stolen or credit denied. And black professors are 3 times more likely to leave academia than their white peers. This isn't coincidence. It's design. The system is working exactly as intended, extracting brilliance from black and brown communities while denying them credit, resources, and life. I'm here to propose the James Wright Accords, an international framework for protecting intellectual property rights of minority researchers, for investigating academic fraud, for ensuring that brilliance is rewarded regardless of the body it comes in. The Accords would require mandatory plagiarism audits of all major research institutions, investigation of suspicious deaths of minority students, financial reparations for proven theft, and criminal prosecution for academic fraud involving stolen work. Some will say this is impossible, too expensive, too disruptive. But I solved an impossible equation when I was 12. I built a school that experts said would fail, and I exposed a murderer who operated for 37 years. Nothing is impossible. It just requires will and consequences for those who profit from theft. He looked directly at the cameras, at the billions watching worldwide. My father was extraordinary. So was my sister. So are the 6,000 students who've graduated from our schools. So are the millions of black and brown kids who are told daily that they're not enough. We are enough. We've always been enough. And we're done asking permission to exist, to create, to be brilliant without being stolen from or killed. The question isn't whether we can change the system. We are changing it. The question is whether you'll join us or be left behind. The speech went viral. Within 24 hours, 47 countries had signed preliminary support for the Accords. Within a week, the UN Education Committee voted to begin formal development. Within a month, protests erupted at universities worldwide demanding immediate plagiarism audits. Students, faculty, alumni, all demanding accountability. Within a year, the first audits were complete. The findings were devastating. Over 2,000 cases of proven plagiarism at major universities, most involving white professors stealing from minority students. Hundreds of careers destroyed, thousands of lives derailed, billions of dollars in stolen intellectual property. The James Wright Accords passed unanimously. Elijah watched the vote from his office at the James and Sarah Wright Academy. His father's photo on the wall, his sister's beside it. Catherine called. "We did it." "No," Elijah said. "They did it. Dad, Sarah, the 11 stolen students, the 6,000 graduates, and the millions who came before us and never got justice. We're just finishing what they started." "Still," Catherine said, "it's a victory." "It's a beginning," Elijah corrected. "Real change takes generations. But yeah, it's a start." He hung up, sat in silence, thought about his father, solving equations at midnight, not knowing he'd be dead in days. Thought about his sister, asking him to make the world remember. Thought about the boy he'd been, 12 years old, wearing a hoodie with a stain, standing at a whiteboard and choosing to be seen, choosing to fight, choosing to win. Outside, students were celebrating, cheering, chanting his name. But Elijah didn't join them, just sat with the photos of the people who'd made this possible, the people who'd never get to see the change they'd created. "We won, Dad," he said quietly. "Not the way you wanted, but we won." And in the photo, James Wright smiled back. Young, brilliant, immortal.